What's up, everybody? Happy Friday. My name is Matthew, aka EZBOT. I'm here with DNcrystal. It's an amazing live performer, a local here in Seattle. But regardless of that, one of my favorite live performers and definitely one of my favorite Digitakt users. And Drew has been a Digitakt user for years, as long as I've been a Digitakt user, and now was very excited about the Digitakt 2 upgrade and really is some of the coolest music and has some of the most complex transitions and stuff that I've heard on a Digitakt 2. And we're going to dive into Drew's workflow. He's going to teach me some stuff, and hopefully I can later teach it to other people at some point too, because this stuff is really awesome and your work is so fleshed out and so well thought. So
Thanks, man.
yeah, if you want to give us a little bit of a backstory on your thought process when you heard about Digitakt 2 coming out, considering how much you were into the Digitakt 1 before we listened to one of your tracks.
Yeah, so to be honest, I was kind of like not underwhelmed, but I was so kind of like hooked into the one that I really didn't know what more the two could do. Even with all the features, I heard about the storage space and the stereo sampling and all that stuff. But I was kind of like, well, it's going to take a lot to kind of like pry the one out of my cold, dead hands. But kind of seeing other people's take on it and kind of seeing, what people would do, it sort of started to make sense more and more, being like, oh, like more tracks, like, oh, more tracks, like, whoa, I don't have to have like, because, you get so used to the one mindset of like, I have 8 tracks and I'm milking every single track. So with this one, once I realized like, oh, I can still do that same exact thing, and now I have overflow. So instead of like being overwhelmed with the amount of new things, it was like, I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I do. And as the concepts come to me, then I have the space to kind of do it now.
How has it changed what you've done? Because I remember when the Digitakt 2 came out, and I was like, there's twice as many tracks, there's so much more sample memory.
Right.
And this is a conversation me and you have had a bunch about, with like, there was just the 8 tracks, you were writing really complex music on 8 tracks. And you're also writing in a per project basis. And I always like preach this, like, don't do it in a per project basis. But
Right.
you kind of had to,
Right.
because you're using so many samples that it just didn't work to do it any other way.
Well, actually, that's not true as well, because I actually I only did it as an organizational thing. So I never ever ran up against the storage space limits.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was actually using like very, very little samples. But the thing for me is that I, because of kind of how I wanted to run the show, and because of like the electron transfer and like actually being able to transfer songs and like redo set lists and stuff, I wanted to be able to say, well, this project is this song, and if I want to recall that song, I don't have to dig through, my November 24th, 2021 pattern bank, basically, and
Right.
and extrapolate that. Because I write very slowly, and it's not really feasible for me to usually write a whole new show every time.
Right.
Because it's the style of music I like to do on here. So I think that was the main reason.
That's a really good argument for it, and that's still a good argument for it now.
Well, it's a good argument for it if you, I think, for a certain effect. Like if you find yourself like we've talked about this a ton too. Coming from band world and like writing songs, you're kind of thinking of it like this is like a song, and you play it differently live every time, but it's still like this is a song that has like a verse, a chorus, an outro, a bridge,
Right.
and then like chorus alternate or something.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a lot harder for me to just like, we have a lot of friends who are really good at like taking a few simple things and like evolving them. I'm not good at that. So that was why the project thing kind of came about.
You definitely come off as a songwriter, even though your performances really, like, there's some of their strengths, they really show like that you are improvising quite strongly, and that you're feeling the vibe just like you would with a classic, more electronic music writer and performer. So I feel like that is almost, I think that's a self-imposed maybe misconception about ourselves as band people who turn to electronic music, because I think you write and perform just so
Thank you.
well.
I mean, I would say the same for you. And I just always find myself very, kind of envious of people we know, like Steven, who are just, able to like take one or two things and like the command that, people who are good at that have over like just very small modulations and like kind of like that's something I've had to learn, and I think I've gotten better at it. But you know, early on performing, there was like not a ton of improvisation. I think it was a lot more like, well, here's another section of the song, but I'm not really like, the mutes change, but I'm not really doing. And now I kind of feel like I like to do a lot more like actual twiddling and stuff.
Yeah, there's more for you to twiddle now.
And
you
now
have
there is more. There is a lot more to
performance-
twiddle. Yeah.
Are you using the perform mode, the kit mode? Not yet. I think that might be something that eventually you break. I haven't really been using it much myself because I'm so used to Digitakt 1's workflow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of foreign to me.
It's really cool though. I mean, the idea. Well, the big thing you're talking about, like this guy, right?
Yeah,
like going
yeah.
So that is cool to me because it doesn't mess with your mutes. So the reason I don't do the save and reload is because it remembers mute states, even with the purple mutes, with the pattern mutes, and that messes with, you know, because I'm also very specific. We talked about this too, like setting up the mutes per pattern is like the state that the next pattern has to be in has to have those mutes, and so like sometimes when you'd be messing with stuff, you'd reload and it'd be like, oh, pattern 8 was not supposed to be there, or, you know, track 8.
Yep.
So is really cool for that.
That's often like my biggest screw up at shows is that I forgot about the pattern states or the mute states, and I go to a new pattern and it's ill prepared.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or it's over prepared, I guess would be another way of putting it. Like it's all unmuted when it's not supposed to be. And now I don't have any way to move out of that. I've gone to too high of an energy and I can't reverse that. I can, but it feels unnatural.
Yeah, I've run into that. That's one of my biggest things too. Is because I also do the thing where like I lock every single project ever.
Oh, you do?
So I can't oversave it. Yeah.
Oh,
so every time I want to make any changes, I have to like unlock it, and then. So, but that just means that when I change projects, it means I can never. That saved my life, dude, so many times. Like, because it happened one time at a show where, I went to like, oh, pattern 5, the chill pattern. It was like very much not the chill pattern. And you're kind of standing there like, well, it's a new song now, you know? And you have to kind of be like, well, I guess I'm writing a new song on the spot because this is like way too hype, you know?
You have some like really great, like just like classic tips that you shared with me. Like one, lock your projects. I didn't even think of that. It's just such a basic idea.
Well, yeah, it's a classic thing though of like something you royally like destroy yourself once and you're like, well, I'm not going to do that again. Like it kind of takes you failing to be like, that's never happening. You know?
Yeah.
So
another one that's really good that you actually taught us all last time you came on here was this. Like you can see this number.
Well, I can't really do that anymore because there's 16 tracks.
Oh.
So there's not enough room for me to like write. Sorry, I cut you off. Sorry about that.
No. You can like, what is it again?
So what I used to do was like, because there's only 8 tracks, I used to be able to like write the numbers in the order that I would unmute them. So like the pattern would load in a certain state, and then it would be like every number would be like, oh, so 1-4 means 1 and 4 are going concurrently, and then +3 means that I'm adding 3 by itself. Otherwise, I would put 3-2 to go both at the same time. So then every plus means wait another cycle. I had like a whole code like ready to kind of do it that way. But now with 16 tracks, I can't really do it as much. So I'm trying to like develop a new system for that.
Yeah, I guess you couldn't. I guess
You'll see some funny pattern names on here that
they're like little
don't make any sense.
Tips,
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I have like ampersands and stuff in there. So.
Oh, nice. Oh, you got a little language. I've talked.
Yeah.
There's another person, Blake's,
Oh yeah.
Who's come on here a couple times. And
Oh yeah, Blake's is great.
Stuff.
Yeah.
He has a whole like language that he's written for.
That's so cool.
His
you kind of have to.
live shows. Yeah, I think it's Blake's that does that. Well, you know what I really want to do? I really want to hear some of your tunes real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's gonna be a lot to talk about after that.
Yeah,
so
let's do it.
Let's hear a track. Banger, dude.
Thanks, man.
That was amazing. Everybody is enjoying your tunes right now.
Sick.
That was awesome. This is just one like he has a million of these tracks. They're not in this project right now, but
Yeah,
they're
because I'm gonna have to change
all
projects. Yeah.
amazing, and they all sound so really well crafted. Everybody, including myself, wants to know, how does Drew do those amazing transitions?
Transitions.
What
Yeah.
is happening? Is it
So-
the last command? Is it a resample? You're using that comb filter a ton, which is so cool because that's new. So
That was one of the biggest. Honestly, that was one of the things I was most excited about.
Yeah.
Just because, a lot of the old like Akai stretch, like the S950, like rack sample, that effect of like the Haas filter, the comb filter was like such a huge sound, especially with like drums and vocals of like a lot of the 90s
good
like
on
jungle
drums.
D&B stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and with the fact that you have the 3 LFOs now, and you have it's really easy to like apply like to do like a pre-EQ sort of EQ thing, and then resample and then do comb filter, so you don't run into like
Is that what you're doing?
well, if a sound needs it, for sure. Like sometimes like the samples will be a little muddy, so I'll carve it first in there, and then I'll resample it, and then so I can play with the comb filter, so it doesn't take up the slot. But transitions. Let me see. Like most of the time with transitions, I'm well, for instance, the one that you talked about earlier, I think it was this one. Let's see. So
That's one of them. There's a bunch.
so that was just me resampling the drum break and then like manually
And then just
doing the filter that way.
program. So is that on a separate track?
Yeah, it's on what is it on? I'll find it. It's on one of these guys. I think I have it embedded as like a kill switch in one of these tracks. So, somewhere. I don't know exactly which track I have it on. It's probably that right there actually. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, so I have that
I
on.
thought that's what would be the process, but I
Yeah.
was wondering, like, is it you're using because you can do the last command instead of a page command, or instead of a fill command. When you just transition to the next one, can automatically mute and unmute.
Oh,
transition
you're saying
for
that you can
you.
set up. Yeah, so that's harder for me because I usually put so much on the page, the fill anyway, that I kind of, not in this song as much, but I like to ride it sort of throughout. Like sometimes in certain songs I'll have like, different kind of like kill switches in other parts of the beat, and then I'll have like different things that kind of like work together. That I really like having like everything I want to do transitionally, I want to be in here so that I don't forget. And then like, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's a control thing. I just really enjoy being able to like use the fill. Definitely.
Yeah, I honestly haven't used I haven't used the commands myself. There's
Yeah.
a bunch of new features in the Digitakt.
I don't even know
that,
half of
like,
them probably. Yeah,
that I'm
at this point,
I've gotten familiar with them to know how to like know what they do and their purpose and function, like the perform kit mode and the last and those commands. I haven't had because I'm not the Digitakt 2 isn't like my first
Yeah.
Digitakt, right? Same
Right.
with you. Like where we used it so much for years.
Yeah.
That's so ingrained, like what the workflow that we've already created, and I can see that because the stuff that's really obvious that you're using is like comb filters, and that was just something you really wanted that wasn't there.
Yep.
And
That's a big one.
More tracks, of course, which you have tracks for like resampling.
Well, what I end up doing now, especially with the tracks, is I have it set up to where, and I know a lot of people kind of do this too, is like I just do drums, everything else. So instead of before, I would have to like, I had a whole system where it was like 8 is always the vocal thing, 5 is always the bass, 6 and 7 are usually like what other melodic elements, and then it was like 1 through 4 at least were drums, sometimes 1 through 5, depending on the track. But now, it's funny, find myself, instead of doing like the row, I find myself using the blocks. So it's like 1 through 4, 9 through 12 is like my block that I'm kind of doing stuff in instead of having it spread. And then this is all, if something's over here, I know it's kind of like auxiliary.
Okay.
So that's how I got around the naming thing, where it's like, okay, if stuff is the absolute crucial stuff, I know is going to be muted here. And then things that are fun, I put over on the right side.
Things that are fun.
So things that aren't necessary to like me feeling like I did a good job on the song, or not. Things that are fun to add that if they're not there, I don't think are like
Oh, so
gonna
like-
ruin the song.
Okay,
You know
so
what
it's
I mean?
just like additional stuff. If you get to it, you get to it. If
Yep.
you don't, you don't.
Exactly.
Because it is a feel, the vibe. Like you're not counting bars, like, right?
No,
I know
no,
you have
no.
like you're a professional musician outside of Digitakt.
Right,
Like, you're a drummer, guitar player, singer, and I know you do this stuff for a living. So I know like maybe you are counting bars in your head, but when you play a show, the energy that's happening, you're improvising, right?
Mhm.
Like you design your tracks to be improvised.
Yeah, completely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So now, okay. So how do you write a track like what's the starting point for a track like this? Like where do you go?
Well, this track specifically is because I was listening to the song "You Keep Me Hanging On," the Diana Ross, which is where I got the sample from.
So does it start with that sample, and then you just built drums around it, repitched it, or?
Yeah, I kind of just knew that I wanted that. I love that song, and I had that sample in here somewhere. Yeah, like the like let's see here. I know there's some questions I want to get to as well on the chat. But, right, so that's the sample that I had.
It's a good sample.
Yeah.
You just keep me hanging up.
And I was like, well, what's gonna sound good with that? Basically, it's not. I don't really have a ton of process. It's mostly like, how do I build a song around a sample? Usually,
I think that is an unfair statement because I think everything is so natural for you that like maybe it feels like it's not a lot of process for you, but like externally from an outsider's perspective, I think a lot goes into the sample selection and
Totally.
then the tempo you're gonna pick and how you're gonna process it.
yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. Like,
I would love to hear about like I truly love the music you write and I
thank you.
love your performances and I would love to know everything.
yeah, so a big thing with especially the one was learning how I wanted to chop up drums with the Digitakt one
Tell
because there is no built-in way to do that, right? There's on the 1.5 they added the machine, which is the grid, but you can't change the slicing points. So for me, but that didn't really affect me because I always did it sort of the
old
way I learned, which is like just you're parameter locking everything and you're. So for instance, on this first pattern, I kind of just have these two drums going. So I think the full break is like, what is it? So let's see. So that's what the break sounds like.
Okay.
And I knew that I didn't want I didn't want all that stuff at the end with all the kind of crazy fills and stuff. So what I would do is I basically just like take what I find is like the best part of the groove, and I'm like, like those are all the same sample because this is like, actually it's only the kick and the hats. What I really love about that is I love that hat that I kind of left in kind of gets to that. It just like kind of like that movement,
Sounds like somebody is like
right, but it's only one little piece of the sample, and I think like a big part of like sampling conceptually for me is like finding those, like taking a lot of time and sitting with a sample and feeling like what is like the natural, what is it doing? Like when I'm chopping drums, I don't really think a lot of like, oh, I want to do like a cool fill here. It's more like, well, like what do I already have in the sample and what's it naturally telling me to do? And I sort of it sounds like very esoteric, but I'm like, well then what is the sample telling me to do, kind of? And the best way I could describe that is like, I had nothing else before I had this little break and this little thing. The song was completely different before I put these down, just like, I was literally doing
play
that
it in by hand or
I mean, I was doing just what I just did. Like I put the tracks down. Like I think I literally had this. Like I had 4 on the floor, right? I had 4 on the floor with this break opened up like this. So it was kind of like, let me just do this. So it's just like, I can do this now too. So this is what I started with this song. There wasn't even a comb filter. There wasn't any of this stuff on or anything. You know, it was just like that. That's all I had.
The comb filter did add a lot to the.
It's a ton. It's super flat right now. You know. So I was like, okay, it's kind of a cool vibe, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, okay, I had this other kind of break.
Yeah.
Which is, that's another chop, right? That's kind of like more of like a ravey, like I would put like a kind of like big old Saint Bernard kick on there, you know.
Saint Bernard kick.
Yeah.
What's that?
Just like super,
like a dog?
No, like a big not literally a dog. I mean, maybe
I know that, but
maybe somewhere, but the dog, yeah.
Is the analogy that Saint Bernards are large?
It's a
so
giant.
the
It's a
kick is large?
giant woofing dog. Essentially.
I was like, what's a Saint Bernard?
Yeah, I kind of just said that without thinking. Yeah, so like that would what I would be doing, but the reason I did this set was because I was like tired of kind of doing stuff I used to do, but that I still do, which is like a lot of the ravier stuff. So I was like, well, what would I not do here? And that's, well, no 4 on the floor, first of all. So to get back to the sample, literally what I was doing is I was like, well, that's flat. So then I would just sit here and, you know, like you can audition the sample, right, by holding it down the trigger and then pressing yes. So I literally was just doing this and like, okay, like, just like doing that kind of stuff. Like, okay, what's going to feel good? And then I was like, well, it's hanging on for too long. Like, keeps me hanging on, you know? So it was hanging on for way too long. And so I was like, okay, what about like that? I was like, oh, that's cool. Cause then I can go like,
Yeah.
and so I literally just from there was like, okay, well then what rhythm is that? How do I achieve that sound? And, this is how I do everything. It's just, I kind of start with one pattern, one page 1, 4 on the floor. And then I'll just sit here and comb. I'll be like, you know, because even something like that, you know, if it's another tempo, you could go like, dun, dun, ka, dun, ka, dun, dun. You know, stuff like that. So like I'll sit here and I'll comb through the entire sample, every single drum sample I have. I'll just comb through the entire thing until I find little nuggets. And then that's when more of the drummer sense takes over, and that's something it's hard for me to explain because that has less to do with this and has more to do with like I just kind of already know
Here's
the rhythms that I want to do. You know what I mean? Like,
here's one of the things too, and I think that this is kind of an important thing to acknowledge is like it's not just about like your skill set with programming the Digitakt or programming music in general, whether it's on Ableton, because I know you're an Ableton user as well, right?
yes, yeah,
And like, but you're legit a great drummer, so it's like. That is definitely coming into your music production. It's like, I don't know, there's something to be said about that. It's like, there's a lot of folks who make music, program music, and they didn't play an instrument before they got into electronic music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that makes you make a certain kind of music because like you learn how to program, you learn how to make music by programming. You learned how to make music by playing, and now you're programming the music that you used to play.
Yeah.
And that's a different,
totally.
makes it a whole different kind of music. And not that one is better than the other.
No, not at all.
They're both really awesome.
Yeah.
But they, you know, like you get to use that skill set on the Digitakt. And I just think that's important to acknowledge that fact that like you're coming from a place of
it's a different spot. Yeah.
that's all you've ever done your whole life is played music, right? Like that's your thing.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. So I'm really glad you get to share all this with us because I think it's really enlightening for everybody to see like what's happening.
Yeah. I mean, like I know it's sort of like. I think it's a little bit hard to explain the process because there's a lot that's just sort of, you know, when you're making stuff, you're not really thinking about, maybe you do more because you're used to making like content and like videos to teach people. For me, I'm like not a teacher and so I never really reflect on like what I'm actually doing. So it's actually really cool for me to be like, well, wait, how do I do this? Like, it's not that it's a complete mystery, but I've never had to like grapple with like, well, how would I show someone how to do
would I
this?
teach
You know what I mean?
teach another?
So like, I would say like, yeah, the biggest thing for me, with sampling like conceptually that I really love over synthesis too is like, there's a lot of information baked in, and I'm very lazy with songwriting though too, where, I guess coming from band world, I'm really used to like following the path of like, you know, you get those happy accidents where you're jamming with yourself or with someone else and you're like, let's follow that. And I think that happens a lot with electronic music, and I think that's the only way that I know how to do things. Like, I have a lot less of a thing in my head writing this stuff. It's usually just a lot of trial and error. You know, it's like a lot of time. It's just, And I think that's sort of like the thing that it's like the plus and minus is like the negative that I was kind of talking about earlier is like it takes me a really long time to do this stuff. Like it's not like it's this I crank this stuff out. Like I take a lot of time to do it, and I don't even need to take as much time as I do sometimes. But I get so like wrapped up in like some of the minutia that actually sometimes it's cool and sometimes it's not. And I think I'm trying to get better at just being like, well, this feels really good. Let me actually leave more room to improvise. Let me leave more room to sort of be on my toes and not be as prepared. Because I
Not
think I
have
have
it
more
on the
fun.
rails
I have
too
more
much.
fun. I have more fun with that actually performing. Because sometimes, because if you go into it and you're like, well, I didn't do exactly what I wanted, that could either be awesome or you could be bummed about it. And I'm just tired of being bummed about not doing exactly what I want. So
That's a great, yeah, that's a
and this machine's really
great
good at that too.
philosophy for
It's
that.
really good to like keep you like really focused on what's really important, I think. So yeah, like I don't know, like if you want me to show anything else like
Oh, I mean, I want to see so much. I mean, just like your explanation of what you were talking about
Yeah.
with like how you comb through for drums and like a lot of this stuff I'm familiar with. I try and use the machines in the machines that I use like to their descriptor a bit. Like
Yeah.
I would venture to try and use the stretch, not this. When I do like a drum break, my workflow is a little different. I don't know if you're using the time stretch,
I don't use time stretch.
not even to bring it to the tempo that you need
No.
it.
That's actually something I feel very strongly about too. For what I'm no not in general. I'm not like trying to be like opinion guy. I
No,
just
no,
mean
I
for my
understand.
music, it's like I really have a hard time with that because again I kind of tune everything by ear. Oh well, actually I can show you in this one too. So like
So like you're just gonna go to the pitch.
yeah,
and adjust the pitch of the whole
I'll adjust the
sample.
pitch knob. So like for instance on I think it's this one. That's on yeah. So right on this track I have the think break, like super famous James Brown break. So what I do is like I'll sit here and because the original tempo is like let's see here.
Everyone wants to know where you got your knobs.
The knobs. Pavel Powers. X Powers. Pavel X Powers.
What's that?
He's like this dude. It's where I got my old Digitakt skin too. He's like this like somewhere I don't know, it's international. But he just like X Powers is the name of the store and he had like a mixed bag of knobs you can just buy and he just like he just does random colors. So I was like, just give me whatever colors you want, man. Doesn't matter because like I just love having whatever on there.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
flair.
so X Powers, Pavel, Pavel X Powers is the store. It's great. Great guy. Right. So it's like the original tempo's around there. And so like I'll just sit here and I'll like put like a trig down and I'll just like
Very old school workflow. Yeah, you had it.
Yeah.
I heard it. Yeah, you
yeah,
nailed it.
so like what it's in pattern mode right now. So like Yep, just like half an hour 15 minutes just sitting there just doing that for all the drums. And then if I'm chopping too, that's like a whole nother thing of like, well, if I'll do that thing where I'm like, all right, like let's see what happens here. Like, it's like then you run into that and you're like looking for like because that's like the old school technique too of like, you find like the first part of the break. So you can get that, make sure it sounds clean. And I'll copy that, put that there. Then we'll go. It's like the tuning's not even right now. But like I would need to start a whole new project to like go from the ground up.
So why I want to know.
Yeah.
So Drew and we worked together at a synth shop for years. We have had a massive amount of experience with every sampler available, every synthesizer, not every, but you know what I mean. I'm exaggerating, but a lot of music gear. Why, of all gear, are you on a Digitakt?
Because
Considering like your workflow, I mean,
Yeah.
not that this is. I mean, this is a. I love that you're on the Digitakt. I think you make the Digitakt like really shine. Like you really put a spotlight on it in a very positive way. But there's other options out there. There's NPCs would really lend themselves to your workflow, and like chopping on it would be a great. Or why not an Octatrack, for instance, or a machine, or just. And like I know you love Koala Sampler.
I love Koala Sampler.
That's like your favorite thing besides the Digitakt, as far as I know, in terms
it
of
is.
like sampling.
It
goes.
is. Well, I use them a lot together too. I use Koala and Digitakt too.
Tell me.
But first of all,
first question.
The Digitakt, I think there's something to be said about, and I know you know this about me. I'm very much not a gear person. I think
Yeah, you don't have that much gear.
I don't, and I kind of was in that mindset for a long time. I really truly believe that, especially starting out, coming from Bandit, from DAW world, Carly, the first thing we got was the model samples, which is like, kind of like a similar architecture, but stripped down. And when I got the Digitakt, I also, grew up using trackers a lot. And so the electron sequencer is very similar to a tracker in that it's, per step information that you can alter, which is essentially what a tracker is. But more than any of that, and I don't want to be reductive, but I truly believe that the first piece of gear that you're given to learn that connects with you is just the correct one. And so for me, I'm not trying to be stubborn about new gear, but there are so many machines that can do so many things. And I feel like and I'm guilty of this too. You start getting into like, oh, well, this one, like the little thing doesn't, like when you sample, like the bit rate is weird, or like, the digital audio converter is different in this one. And that stuff's important, but it's also like, if you have if you know what you want to do and you're like exploring and like, kind of improving your craft conceptually just as a musician, you're going to be able to create what you want, or at least you're going to be able to create something really awesome on almost anything you're given, right? And because there is differences and they do matter, but I'll never forget that picture of, the whole thing of, MF Doom, the producer rapper. There's that video or that picture of him when him and Madlib are working on Mad Villainy, and it's like the way they were tracking some of the songs was like, it was like an unmade bed and like two like really awful speakers, and then like a SP303, and that's how they just made a lot of that album. And it's like, well, dude, like, why do I need 30 pieces of outboard gear and like something that can? It's like, because I also love new shiny things, so it's like, oh, this has this feature and this feature and this feature, but that's going back to even going from the 1 to the 2. Like, nothing about this is actually fundamentally changing like what people already know how to do. I think it could lend itself to maybe like realizing different parts of what you're already trying to go for, but it's almost like, I don't know. It's like figuring out how to not downplay like the exploratory part of like, oh, there's new gear and there is differences, but also I think we get so obsessed with like, this thing doesn't do the thing I need it to do. And it's like, well, do you really need it to do that thing? Or are you just not,
Or we're just harping on it.
Or like, because I really believe in like, you have to milk what you're given and what you have and like really like wring it dry for like, for what you want to do, I think that actually creates something that's butting up against those limitations is one of the only ways I think to actually like improve your like the way you think about writing music. And
I think what you said is you said that really well, by the way. Like, I think
that's just how I feel too. I'm not trying to like prescribe that. I just,
no, I think
personally
that's going to resonate with
yeah.
I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. If people watch the stream, that'll resonate with them. It resonates with me really strongly because it's always on my mind because like you came from playing in bands and singing and doing all that. And that is definitely where I come from. And all I needed was a guitar and an amp. And I just needed overdrive on my amp. Like, I didn't even need pedals. Like, I didn't care about pedals that much. I just, a reverb maybe and a delay. Like, those are the classic sounds. But like what you mentioned with the MF Doom shot, this is the same thing that's been coming up in my mind a lot lately too, is like there's like the Tame Impala shots. Like, how did Tame Impala write that first album? And you look at it and he's got like a Juno 60 or 106 or whatever. He's just sitting on his floor with a recorder and a Juno and a guitar, and he's just, and then he sits at his computer and he records it in, and it's always so simple. And when every once in a while I get like booked for like a lesson with somebody to like, they want to learn the electron gear, they want to learn it like right now because they're a professional, and they just want to get, or well, I'm talking about professionals at this point, but it'll be somebody who's a professional booking me for a gig or something, and they need to learn this box very quickly so they can incorporate it into their show or whatever. And I'll talk to them about this concept a little bit. They're always way less complex than you would imagine. Like somebody who's like a profound artist, and you see what they're working with, it's always less.
Yeah.
Always less than I think.
Yeah.
Every single time. It's like, nah, I just do this. I just use this. It's what I've always used.
Yeah, there's
I'm
not
like,
there's
okay.
I think there's a lot less barrier to, well, it's the whole thing of, you know, like someone who gets, you know, success or popular, and it's like they play the guitar, and then it's like, well, that guitar, like I want that guitar, it has to have like the right pickups and stuff. It's like, well, dude, like most of the time I feel like, especially people who are like those kind of artists, like we're just playing whatever they were given.
Right.
Or it's like, you know, Kurt Cobain with like the Jaguar or whatever. It's like, well, yeah, but like that Jaguar is not going to make you look or sound like Kurt Cobain, you know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
And it's just like
getting a Digitakt isn't going to make you sound like DNcrystal.
or anybody, right? Like,
Right.
or you know, getting a 303 is not going to make you sound like MF Doom, or, you know, like DiBiase or whatever. You know, like it's like you're using the tools you're given to create, and everyone has their own version of like what they want to like get out of themselves, and it's like the tools are very it's almost like secondary to like what you want to do with it. And but then it's also important, I think that's where community is a huge thing, you know,
Right.
like teaching and like learning from other people and seeing how people do things. Yeah, I think it's like that's the whole point of doing any of this.
That is,
think,
I
you know?
mean, that's like, I think like was something that has been on my mind. I talk about it quite a bit on like these streams lately because it's been so just apparent to me, and it's happening right now for me with you. And you're on here showing me, you know, other people are watching, but you're showing me essentially how you make your music and giving me this tutorial on your perspective, not just on the Digitakt. I know how to use the Digitakt.
Sure, yeah.
How do I use the Digitakt like you? How do I think, you know, like that? And that's kind of like what happens when you first pick up an instrument, say you pick up a guitar. And like for me, my obsession was immediately to write music when I got an instrument. Like all I cared about was making something
Yep.
new. Something new that came out of me. I didn't care about learning your music, your theory instruction. When I first got a guitar, I just wanted to play chords and just
Well, it's the childlike wonder, and I think that that's like a very important part of any music. It's like you should be doing, you know, I'm careful with should, but I feel like doing something that elicits that, you know, you're kind of taught to suppress that feeling of like, oh, this is just super cool and I want to do this, but it's like, sometimes it can be that simple.
Yeah.
You know, like just the way I approach this stuff, I'm not really thinking like artistically even. I mean, I'm spending a lot of time on it, but it's because I'm like, oh, those drums feel cool to me, and it's
Right.
like the sample feels really good to me, and I'm not thinking about like an art about it really that in that way. It's
how do you
more
stay
just
in that headspace though? Like how do you not fall into the like that paradigm shift where you go into like, I need to collect this gear and I need to use this technique because this technique is proven to be effective or faster or
Right.
whatever. Like how do you stay just cheerfully working on music the way you do?
I think that, as we were saying, talking about before with tools, like people are using the tools to their effect, and so like just because I get a tool, I might learn a process and get a tool, get a new thing. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to even use it in the same way, or that I should be using it in the same way. And I think what you can learn more from is like, well, on that you did that. You know, it's like watching you in the Octatrack. It's like, oh, you're doing that, and how do I do? Because I'm looking at it in terms of big picture things. Like, I guess maybe that's kind of my personality too, is like, I'm looking less like, oh, that specific thing. It's more like, well, you're doing like a stuttery thing. You're doing a time stretchy kind of effect. How do I recreate that? And I don't need it to be the same kind of thing because I think it's achieving similar ends.
Right.
I'm looking at kind of like the end goal of what I want a performance or, a song to be. And I think that sort of keeps me really grounded because like, I think also working at a synth shop and working in music retail and being on tour, it's like you start to see like, oh, at the end of the day, it's all kind of the same. Like it's not that it's all the same, but like the end goals kind of start to converge with like, oh, like people are only like, my goal should be I'm going to do the thing that I really love, and I already have the tools in front of me to do it. And if I don't, then I'll just find a way to do it on the tool that I have.
Cool.
And it's like not letting anything stop you from just like doing what you want to do on what you have. And then, you know, there is room to be like, because it is, you know, it's exciting to be like, oh, dude, I want the deluge, you know, like I would love to have another deluge, and I would love to be able to like see what comes out of that. But it's because like you know, through kind of wringing dry what I already have, I kind of know what I would do in other gear. And so I don't know. That's sort of how I approach it, though.
No, yeah,
with contentment at least, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense, and and that's well put, and I totally agree. I guess what I was getting at too, and I kind of I lost my own train of thought when I was doing that, was listening to other. You were talking about community and like growing this thing with community, and something that I've been doing a lot lately is like, I'm not like a techno artist. I'm not a house artist.
Yeah.
I'm like, if anything, I would fall into like the electronica thing, just because it's all just me just having fun with my gear, and that's kind of the overarching genre for people who are just messing around on their gear. But listening to other people's art and trying to like recreate that process a bit, I think that is really powerful, and that's something that you had to do as a touring musician, and not necessarily being the one who's writing the songs all the time with the bands.
Right.
You got to learn their tunes.
Yeah.
And I think that is so, and it's like DJs, for instance, have a really great ear for music because they listen to so much music, right? And it's the same thing with like a touring musician. They have a really great idea of like getting into the vibe of the tune, because that's your job.
Yeah.
Is to like vibe, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, I resonate a lot with that too, in terms of like being an electronic artist first. So I feel like I'm a dance music artist, because like it's sort of pedantic, you know, but like electronic music is also like, I don't really feel like that fits kind of what I'm trying to do either. Like, you know, it's like whatever's happening, I just want movement to be happening. I want the energy of that, because I don't feel like I'm not good at synthesis. I'm very bad at modular. I'm horrible, the worst. I'm like a sea bass up there, just flopping around. I don't even know what I'm doing. You know, like I know what things are, but I'm just like, I don't know how. When I see someone perform with like, you know, a sequencer or 5, and then like a rack, and it sounds sick, I'm like, that's cool. You know, it's incredible to me, and I don't understand it. So it's like, what can I do well? I know how to do drums decently enough. So that's where my energy is. It's like, as long as I have enough drums that I can dance to. So it's like, sure, I make dance music, you know?
Okay. Yeah. I think that's
Sure, it's like, you know,
that's a fair
whatever.
explanation of it. And you do make dance music, and your music makes everybody dance, and that's a fact. It always happens at every show. It's like you have a lot of hype and energy, and you move around when you perform, and like it really comes through. Okay, so just getting back to we've been on.
Do you want to get some of the questions? I know like there's a lot of people.
There's a
few questions. I don't want to be ignoring everybody.
I'm kind of reading over it. I'm looking for, you know, I feel like we're kind of answering them, so to speak. What I'm curious about, and I think that people should learn from you, is you showed us that one transition. You kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
There was another one in there that like had this like there was more happening.
Oh yeah.
Is it this,
you know what?
I want to see more of this. I think that like one of the reasons why I've had so much fun with the Octatrack and building like performance templates and stuff like that, and you're doing that stuff in your Digitakt without using an Octatrack, is the transition between a moment in a song to the next moment is such a crucial part of your music that it's like, to not have a transition, you're missing out on this massive energy, this, you know what I mean? Like there's a huge amount of energy you need to create in that small moment. It's like a bar. Or less than a bar. Yeah. You know, and it's like that moment right there, that is everything.
Well, and that comes from band world, definitely. It comes from like, we're going into the second chorus, like we gotta change some shit. You know, like I'm gonna do a different fill, or I'm turning on the overdrive. You know, it's like that's how I'm thinking of all this stuff. It's always like, how are you gonna get in? It's like, what is the energy gonna be when that section starts? When that pattern hits, what do I want the vibe that I'm giving off to be? And I think that's where a lot of the transitions kind of come from. So let's see, like, I think there's this one.
That's it, yeah.
That one, yeah.
So let's talk about that transition right there. There's a lot happening. This sounds like there's multiple trigs happening. You got a crash symbol that's like reversed.
Yep.
And the comb filter's going down. It kind of sounds more like a phaser at that point. Or a flanger or something.
Yeah, let me see what I have going here. They're probably all on the same page. Yeah, so here's one. Can't remember what these are doing. Am I doing comb filter position? Yeah. So what I did here, you can hear that, like you said. Every single one of these triggers is I'm changing the position. You can see here of the cutoff basically of the comb filter.
Okay.
So
This is a live recorded. Like I do a lot of that too. That's
yeah,
like
it was live. Oh, it's live recorded, and then I go back and I edit every single one to make sure that they're like equal. I mean, like that's what it's like pretty like stupid. Like I don't need to do that at all, but even in this one, what I really wanted. I'm hearing the tempo, and I wanted that effect of like, don't do show. Like it had to be like it had to feel that way, right? Like, and so like, and even the way I think the trig length I have, yeah. So I made sure it was only 6, even though it's like goes over 16 steps. I then like made sure I had enough release to where it would naturally fade out as soon as the other ones come in. So if you listen, it's like, it goes like, and then it goes off. It's like,
right.
So there's that. And then over here I have, or maybe it's on, I don't remember anymore what I have stuff on. That's the break. It's the pad.
Where'd that pad come from?
What did I sample for this? Let me see, what is it called? Chord pad. Oh, that's a iPad. What's the app?
It's an iPad app.
It was
so good.
It was just from a some like, is it SRC maybe source? I think there's like a VST synth that I just use to do if I need pads or stabs. I'll usually use that.
Guess we don't need a $5,000 synth after all.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
I already
you
know
do,
that. I already
Yeah.
know that I don't. And like there's something to be said about it too. It's like I know like you're kind of speaking to the art of minimalism here, like in saying like use what you have and you don't need more than what you have, and like you're not preaching that that's the way to do it, but that is the way that you do it.
That is the way that I do it for sure. Yeah.
But it's not the way everybody does it. As you're in this studio, you know that you're surrounded by a lot of hardware.
Yeah, and it's all like, I'm not saying I hate hardware either. Like I love it. It's very inspiring, and like I love sitting and playing with it. I just don't know how to create with it really, you know. Yeah, I'm just trying to find. I don't know where I put them. Oh, so this is the hard part about trying to find it. A lot of times, so if let me play it back really quick. Sorry, let me just do this. So you notice how all the sounds cut out when the cymbals come in? It's like right on that. So it's like, and it's like.
Yeah.
So a lot of times on other tracks, I'll put in those as kill switches so that it's
Like a
cuts
parameter
everything.
lock that's a fill condition sets the amp to 0.
Yes. So that way I don't have to like, sit here and unmute everything. Kind of what you were saying with like the last command, but I like having the be able to do it like
do
as
it
I'm doing it. Yeah. Because sometimes I'll even do that. Sometimes I'll hold down fill, like I'll
But then transition.
So I'll be like, I mean that's a bad example because I had those things set up ahead
that
of time.
one really wants to go somewhere else.
Yeah, but
I understand what you mean.
But like, I just like having the control be able to like hit it because sometimes I don't know if I have it on this Digitakt. I might have it on the one, but there's a couple songs where like I'm sitting there kind of doing this the whole time because I have like a drum break that I like to, you can
kind of just like
that I put in a bunch of trigs on that like are specific to like hits of like, so I know it'll be like cut, and it's like I can do that and like so it feels like I'm actually drumming.
Yeah,
that's all I'm trying to recreate with any of this stuff is like
same.
how
I know
how
exactly
you would
mean.
play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's like what I do with like the template stuff is that I want that the feeling that I can control the rhythm.
So I don't tag everything else necessarily as not fill. I literally, if I can find it in a track, I'll show you. Like, I basically will just like sample replace because if you with any trig you put down, you can like change like the sample that it's like that's
And
playing currently. In any track, you can change what sample is being played on any trigger. So what I do is in the middle of like a drum break or maybe even like a pad or a vocal line or whatever, I'll cut where I want it to cut, and then I will swap the sample out, and then on another track, I'll do a trigger down, and I'll lock that trigger to 0 volume, like Matt was saying, so that essentially, because it's monophonic, it'll just hit that trigger, and then just cuts everything. So that way, you don't have to worry about unmuting it. And that's been the kill switch kind of, idea has been really huge for me with, especially with this kind of music, because you run the risk of like overloading a lot. And I think a lot of transitions, we'll just, talking about transitions specifically, transitions are really effective because especially if you're taking away to then give it back in the next pattern. So with every transition, like you can't just put like a riser on it and
then go
you can, but it like really loses a lot of energy. It needs to be like a lot of times I'll make sure the kick is all the way out and make sure the hats are all the way out, and then anything going has to go and like suck out so that the transition really feels like it rebuilds the groove. Because then going into this, the whole feel changes, right? It's just kind of like skittery thing.
These are always the best parts of the tracks. When you get to this part, this is like that flow state of a track where you can just sit here forever and we're like, we wanted to get here the whole time. You know what I mean?
I mean, all the other stuff was to get to this pattern, basically.
Yeah.
Like, having like this whole groove and like, let me like solo some of this stuff actually.
Yeah.
So that's what I have just
You
there.
play with silence a lot. I think that's really important to point out. Like silence, it's a part of the instruments, right? Silence is an instrument.
Right. So we'll see this with the chops, like, it starts like, it's all pretty much the same chop, just cut, and then like, these are just like a lot of the ghost notes. Like I'll do a lot of stuff where I'll be like, where it's just like sika sika sa sika sika sa. Kind of, it's like a lot of that stuff, but that's just like drummer shit. You know what I mean? Like
For sure.
So most of what I'm doing is like, as I said before, how do I do what I would like to hear, what I would like to play over this as like a, as a chop, and so for that reason, like, that's why the grid, and that's why like doing like Euclidean stuff doesn't work for me, because all of these breaks are like very, very intentional. Like it's like there's no rhythm that I'm like just putting in. It's like I'm like very specific with like like the snare is there and then it drops and the kick kind of comes in.
Yeah, you're kind of like, you're doing something with the chops that I hadn't thought of, doesn't come natural to me, I guess, like it does for you. Like with your chops you were mentioning, you're not time stretching them, but you are stretching them. So
Just the pitch. Yeah,
to
exactly.
fit the tempo,
Well,
but not keeping the same pitch.
Right. But that's what I love, though. It's that effect of the pitch changing that I need. Because, like, if you take a normal break at, like, like a normal tempo, part of, to me, the style and, like, the excitement of it is that it's that skitty, like, all the transients get kind of, like, sucked out a little bit, and it's like the drums get higher pitched. And to me, that's, like, such an essential part. Because, like, drum and bass, well, the kind of, like, jungly drum and bass stuff that I'm doing here really relies on a lot of that kind of the attitude of those drums being like, and like when you have like a, it's just it presents a different thing. If I was doing maybe like a heavier sort of like in more industrial sort of like hard edge modern drum and bass thing, you would want more of those, like, because they're like a big modern drum and bass sound is like that, like it has that huge snare. That's cool, right? But it's not what I'm really trying to do. So
what I do, maybe you would even like this for your own workflow, but maybe you won't. But what I do, and for breaks, is I'll take a break. I throw it in not the stretch machine, but I throw it in the pitch machine, and then it just immediately sucks it right to the tempo instantly, and then I resample it at the tempo, and then I can do exactly what you do, but I don't have to go in and find it.
I think that would work for me, but I'm like, a lot of times I don't sample things in perfect loops.
That would not work then.
Yeah, so that's kind of why I
because you're sampling them all. You're not like picking up like a pack of breaks.
Well, I don't it's too overwhelming for me. I think like with every new song, I'm finding all the sounds for the song. Like I'm not really like going through my library because I don't have a library. I know I talk about this too. Like every 3 months I purge everything, or like I back it up like on my computer in case I want to do the songs, but like.
And start over.
But I don't have any sample libraries really. It's mostly like, well, I'll be listening to a song, I'm like, I like that. Or I'll be like, we talked about it last time on YouTube, it'll be like, or even on Instagram, I'll just type in like vocalist, and it's like somebody just like, and I've been better about like being like, DMing and be like, hey, can I like use this for a track or whatever? Because it's usually just some guy singing in the mirror, like just like doing his like best vocal lesson thing, and I'm like, oh, I could use that, and I think there's a lot of artifacts. Usually it's like in a bathroom with like camera audio or whatever. And so it's like you get these weird kind of reflections that you can kind of like slam and then like cut the tails. It's just like there's so much cool stuff you can do with that. I want to see what's going on with this song. I know there was like some kind of similar drum kind of vibes on this one.
Do you have another track? Are you able to play this track for us? Like
This track? I mean, not really. It's just I don't have any. There's no transitions. There's no pattern. I mean, I have a bunch of patterns for sure.
I mean, it'd be cool just to hear some more of your tunes because they're awesome and
Yeah. I mean, I might have another one on here I could play. I don't know if I have anything on here that's like, in the same kind of style. I have like older.
oh, you need to whatever style
a bunch
you
of older
want.
songs.
Yeah.
But I don't have the right. Oh no, because they didn't import correctly though. They're all messed up.
From DT1 to DT2.
So because there was like on that last OS update with this, they fixed the sample assignment because it used to be you would import.
Yeah, and it would
And
replace
it would
the
so I haven't re-uploaded. I forgot that I
They
actually
fixed
don't
that?
have. They did. Yeah.
Oh, so now I can actually bring over all my music.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Theoretically. So.
Theoretically, I haven't tried. I've been running into some real bugs
So
and stuff.
so I've seen this kind of come up before too. The changing projects while playing live. Talked about Koala. I used to run with the RC202 looper, which was what last time I was here I did that,
Yeah.
where I would grab a loop and then I would kind of just crossfade over and change the project and then take the loop out, turn my volume up here. I haven't found the right way to do it with the Digitakt 2 yet. What I've been doing is I have
music.
Koala. Yeah, I have Koala on my phone. That's through the mixer here. And so what I've been doing is just like I'll take chops from the songs and I'll mess them up and then I'll like kind of like crossfade into that with a mixer. And then that's how I change projects. If Electron ever did the like, I don't know if there's a way to even feasibly do like where the audio doesn't, where it cuts the audio when you're loading a project. That sounds like, I don't know how they would even do that. That's like my number one wish for, and the only reason I would get Noctatrack.
There
So,
are pieces
yeah.
of gear that do that, like both this M8
Yeah.
tracker and the Deluge both don't. Like they queue up your projects. So
I remember that from this guy, from the Deluge, for sure.
And this too, which is really cool.
That's super cool. It's the number one thing that makes me want to do it all in one project. But every time I do that, like I did that once for for one in Modbang set, and I remember just feeling like I was like being lit on fire. Like I was just like I don't
not a
know.
good time.
Yeah, I was like my flow is kind of
You're
not
too
correct.
Much, you're thinking about
yeah,
that
yeah,
too much.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
understand that.
Yeah.
I like what you do for your transitions. I've stolen your ideas many times for stuff that I'm doing. Like I did it with the Chaos Replay one show where I had a sample of like another song that I made that was like more of an ambient song that
Yeah.
I never played live and I never will because it's an ambient track.
Yeah.
But like it was cool to use as a little transition moment while I was loading up new projects across 3 different machines.
3 machines, man.
You know what I
can't-
mean?
I don't know how y'all do that, man. I don't know how anyone plays with more than 2 pieces of gear. For me, it's like I have 2 hands, and those hands can only operate 1 piece of gear. Like even in this alone, I have 2 hands, but I'm counting 10 knobs.
I'll never forget,
You
dude.
know what I mean? Like that's a knob per finger. I don't
Ryan-
care about function, dude. Knob per finger. That's all.
Knob per
That's
finger.
the only thing I can handle. Yeah.
Ryan from one of your bands,
Yeah.
and our old coworker from the synth shop. I remember one time he said to me, and I was like, some point, I don't know what he was really trying to make a point with this, but he was like, we were talking about
Yeah.
owning guitars, and he goes, you know how many guitars I have? And I was like, how many guitars do you have, Ryan? And he's like, 1. He's like, because I can only play 1 guitar at a time. I was
It's true.
"What?"
I mean,
but I know he has more than 1 guitar. That's total
yeah,
BS, but
yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I know his point was like I got his point, but I was
Yeah. It's like, I mean, there's also, I mean, I have to kind of fight that too. My sort of like, I get kind of snarky with gear sometimes. Well, I think it just comes from working in the shop and like being like, like so many people are like, seem to be very anal about like, well, this one from the 70s, like doesn't like that oscillator, you can't get that part anymore. And this one's not the same. And it's like, it's true. Like it isn't the same, but like, I don't know. Maybe it is really important. It's hard for me to care about that. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, well, is it like achieving the goal? Like it's a super saw. It's like a saw wave, and it sounds sick, and it sounds like a sick saw wave to me. Maybe there's a little bit of like analog warmth in the high mids or something,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but then like if you're only microscoping things like that, then like how do you even write music? I just can't comprehend.
Yeah,
it,
how
really.
could you complete a
So
project?
it seems to be. I mean, people do, and it's amazing, right? Like I'm not trying to I don't want to discount any of that. I just feel like I kind of had to develop sort of like from working in music shops, it's sort of like, well, let's calm down a little bit
you have a
about
thicker
this.
skin for it.
Yeah.
And I do too, and because I do feel that like the customer is always right, but they're not right after they leave.
Actually, the customer is always wrong the second they're outside of the store, and then I never want to see them again. I'm just kidding. Can you copy a whole bank from one project? I think there is a way to do that. I think you can. I mean, I've never tried. You can do it with I know it was a
Copy a project?
or copy a bank.
No, you can't.
You can copy a bank.
So,
I know
like-
you could do like Elcurt on the.
You can
the
do
DT one.
Elcurt. I don't know if they have it for Digitakt II, but I know that what you can do, at least you could on Digitakt 1, and I haven't tried it on Digitakt 2 yet, but you could actually go into one project, copy the pattern, open another project, and paste the pattern.
Which is I that's what I had to do.
It's a horrible
before.
experience.
Yeah.
It's
It was
the
not
worst.
an experience at all.
But it does work. And if your song is not 16 patterns long, it's not like the end of the world, but like your tracks usually have quite a few patterns. That would be kind of a pain.
Yeah, usually it's like 5 to 8.
I
Usually
guess that's not that.
It's not. It's
I
not.
was
It's
thinking
not too
you
bad.
had more than that. There are
Not-
some people like Ray's tracks always are like 6. They're
Well, Ray has a gnarly way that they do stuff too, just with the single box, right? Like they're
Ray's also a Digitakt.
oh yeah,
only.
Rascal Ray, yeah,
Yeah.
they're amazing. They have a crazy way of doing like so much variation, and like I tend to do variations within a pattern, but I think they kind of like have a lot of variations kind of like already out too, and like I think that's also really cool, just being like.
Yeah.
It's like you're kind of seeing the visuals of that, and you're hearing the difference, and it's a cool experience for
It's
sure.
very fleshed out feeling. I am curious, like, so like when is a lot of people talk about like what makes a song? Like what is
Yeah.
a song in electronic music? Like is it even is song even the right word? Is it like what is track? Is track the right word for like what we do in electronic music sometimes? But like there's a workflow that people adhere to often, which will be like my songs are this many patterns, or my songs
Yeah.
are a pattern, and I try and do as many trait conditions
Yeah.
as possible and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Or a bank, and in your case they're 6 to 8. In my case they're 4 to 6
Yeah.
often. And like when is it for you?
Mm-hmm.
When is it done?
I think
When's the cake baked?
for me, there's always like it's like I see it like this. There's always intro, and I mean not even always, but I tend to think like intro, and then build into a verse, and then build up, and then cut some energy, and then like hyper spank, big energy immediately afterwards, and then delineate from there, and then it usually ends with like a drum. Like pretty much all my songs, like it's actually really obnoxious when you can hear it now, because like almost all my songs just end with like the drum break that I really wanted the whole song. So like almost every single song just ends with like, this is the original groove that I love, and I just threw it at the end because it was I couldn't think of anything to put over it because there's already so many drums. So I'm like, well, I guess I'll just like put it at the end and then start taking drums away. So almost all of my songs end with me taking drums away until it's done.
Oh, okay.
So
I like that.
that's like basically like
It's a smooth way to end a song, though. Like
Yeah.
you can feel it's coming to an end.
yeah.
Like I always know like a song is kind of coming. Well, I don't always know, because sometimes I'm like, this song's probably over now, and I'm like, and then bam, we got another set of energy. Coming.
Yeah.
And it's always good. I when I'm like writing music on this box,
Yeah,
I write
sure.
much closer tunes to what you write on here. Like I can achieve closer to what you do on the tracker than I do on the Digitakt, because I have a different workflow than
Yeah.
you on Digitakt.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that makes sense too, because I treat this like a tracker. I mean, like
do, yeah.
my DAW music sounds nothing like this, but tracker music sounds a lot like this.
yeah, tracker music for me sounds a lot closer to what you do.
It makes sense to me,
and
definitely.
and I do also
Yeah.
like, yeah, and I recognize that this is very much a tracker, and or like a tracker.
Yeah. Conceptually, there's enough similarities, I think.
in like my workflow on the Digitakt, I don't know if it's the same for you, but for me, when I write like a really flesh, this is what I tell people when I'm like doing lessons with folks.
Yeah.
Is I'll be like, I'll like write your very best pattern, like the best pattern you've ever written. Try and
Yeah.
write that today. And then we're going to take that pattern, we're going to copy, we're going to paste that pattern, and we're going to rewrite that pattern now with, the essential groove building blocks that you had from before. And we're going to, we're going to do that again with a new, try and think a little differently. Let's change a couple things
Yeah.
up, but let's keep the meat and potatoes of it pretty similar. And then let's do it again. And let's do it again. And let's start thinking about energy levels. So we want to bring energy up, we want to bring energy down. Let's keep copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I definitely am copying and pasting a lot of like, in that, almost every section is just another iteration of the previous section. Where it's like, I have the same levels, I have similar samples. So yeah, it is a lot of like, I'm never approaching like pattern 3 being like, what's a whole new thing? It's always like, well, that pattern 2 just happened. I'm pasting it, and then I'm just like,
Two are doing
swap
so
stuff
it
out.
is the same.
Yeah, essentially.
Essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. That's good to know.
Hey, Betts. What's up, man? Good to see you. Wow. It's cool. Yeah, so let me think if I can play something.
Yeah.
I have
hear more music from you.
I have well I sort of like I said, I was telling you I kind of messed with everything that in this session, and I there's not like a lot of like there's a couple songs I have that are a little more complete, but I'm kind of like wish I could do a lot of stuff differently. But I mean, they have a lot of the same concepts. Like
Yeah, like I'd like to, even if you don't have to play a song, but you could show us a couple
Sure.
of patterns and like maybe
in that case, yeah.
talk to us about how like they came to be and like what's a little bit of the I don't know, your process for creating them and delineating from one pattern to the next. And
Yeah, totally. So like this, this one,
nice sample.
the old silence.
I mean, it's there. It's just the graphic.
This so a lot of these songs that I'm working on are for the tour that's coming up. And so I'm kind of having to do like a little bit more atmospheric than I normally would do, like a lot of the rave stuff. So I'm definitely approaching them a little differently. Like this one, I don't have it fully set yet, but I'm working on like a kind of a washy intro kind of vibe. So I'll try to make it work into the next section, which I don't know if my mutes are going to be like trash.
They're gonna be all
Probably.
over the place.
Yeah, let's try it. Let's just.
Well, even you can talk to us
Let's
about
try
like
that.
why, like this is interesting.
Yeah.
Actually, like why is what muted and whatnot. Like this is stuff that everybody wants
Yeah,
to know.
yeah. So
Nobody
in this
knows.
pattern, the reason I just unmuted it is because I had this like I chopped up this kind of guitar thing. It's like
Is this you?
no.
Could have been though.
So yeah, so this one was weird because no timing worked. Like it was no matter how I was like changing the tuning, like the timing, and I didn't want to time stretch it, so like I ended up like making it jump, like the old school way of like. So like I have to like put a trick there to make sure like. It because the rhythm doesn't sound like that in
I
the
do that with
sample.
vocals a
Yeah,
lot.
the rhythm is completely different than that in the original sample. So it's like, but I really wanted it to come through. So let me see if I can pull this intro off really quick. I've actually never. Obviously, I'm still working on the song. Never tried to play it, so we'll see what happens.
It's good practice.
Got some analog samples there.
I can hear how stereo it is.
Yeah, I was talking about Gemma.
Oh, Gemma. Yeah, my dog. Sample Gemma.
Yeah. So that's where there would be a little more swelling, probably some more chordal stuff.
I thought that was actually pretty nice too, actually. But I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Quad cam doesn't work.
Or like fading it with the filter too. And eventually we're going here. Forgot what I had on this one. Oh yeah.
You do something. Oh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, so that's all I got for this so far.
I mean, it's cool to hear, like, just to see, like, you're in the middle of a song. This is you,
Yeah.
not the unfinished track. And, like, something that just spoke to me was when you went to this next part of the song, the bass wasn't there. And I forget the impact of dropping your bass and keeping your drum samples going and how good that feels as an audience member. Like, when you're like, oh, it's such a relief. And you get to bring it back. You get to give it back to us. Instead of dropping the kick, which is such a techno thing to do, right? In techno, you'd be like, take the kick out,
Right.
or high pass the kick.
And it's also really it's super effective for the same reason. Well, in techno too, a lot of that low end information is coming from your kick.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually, I feel like so. Yeah. So it definitely makes sense. Like, I'm really sensitive to, like, to a fault, I think, of like overbearing low end stuff specifically too.
Yeah,
like,
I've noticed your bass lines are often like they'll land on a kick. Like the note will start on a kick. It'll be a single bass note. It's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah,
it's like it's an emphasis underlying the drum. It's like very when playing with a band, the drummer and the bassist are sitting there like looking at each other like boom.
Like you, like you're gonna do it or I'm gonna do it. Well, it also depends on the genre too, because if you're doing like an acid thing or doing something where the bass is like the focal point, then it's like you have more room to sort of be more, maybe overbearing isn't the right word, but like you have. I think a thing I'm really guilty of is like when you write something cool too, you want everything to be heard, but that actually makes it less cool because if everything is heard all the time, then nothing has any impact, So it's like, I think a big thing is, like knowing what part needs to stick out when is something I fight with like every day is like, again, I'm doing the same thing. That's the last pattern I have. And it's the drums, right? It's like, I always I had this is the first group I had. It's just this, like in pattern one, I was like, well, let me build it, right? Like, actually, I really like this little, this little kick with the swung with no velocity on it. That makes the whole thing for me. Like
I hear it too,
like,
and it's
that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh, I get all like geeked out on that kind of stuff. Because then, especially if you start bringing in like the snare and like, it's just like feels like you can just even do that like. You're already like halfway there to like any pattern, you know what I mean? I actually thought of you because I know this is a trick that you do, where you're like playing the use the grid mode to sort of play with vocals kind of stuff, and that's just like the grid mode, like not randomly, but it's like
Okay.
But like I didn't really stretch it to fit into that though.
Right.
You know, it was like, well, that's naturally what's popping
The
out
vocals,
already.
it
Just
doesn't even matter.
yeah, but I did really like that, like.
Yeah, it's just turning it into an instrument,
Yeah,
like a synthesizer.
it was just a happy accident though, because it's not even in time or anything. I don't even know how it like
Why it sounds
why
like that.
why it why it went into that, but yeah.
It's dope, dude. I'm just love your workflow. It's such a different mindset than mine is, and I'm always trying. Like often, I'm trying after I hear you play, especially. I want to emulate
Yeah.
what you're doing because it's so cathartic sounding. Like it sounds clean and crisp and well thought out, and there's not like a million sounds happening at once. It sounds more like a 3 or 4 piece band is playing. We got
Oh,
a drummer, we got a keyboardist, we got a bass player, and then maybe we have a guitarist or a vocalist or something. And like that's kind of what you're playing with, as opposed to being like I have a infinite library and an infinite library of sound sources and
Yeah.
concepts. And I don't know, I appreciate that, and I feel like it's something I strive to accomplish because I'm familiar with it too.
If you wanted to get into that guy, I actually have a track that I think would work really well with what you were talking about with the OT.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh wait, you want to?
If you wanted to get into
you wanna
doing
try
that,
that out?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm just like I've been working on a track that's like a lot more
Pop this sucker in.
low tempo.
Try and see what happens when you.
Oh, yeah, it already changed. It already changed the tempo. Let's see here.
Throw some. We lost your MIDI.
Would it be possible to change it to 113 on there first?
Yeah.
Because it'll like change it to 160. Yeah. I think it's gonna mess up the. So let me see. This is another work in progress that I'm working on.
You'll just hit play from the Octatrack at this point.
Let's see what I have on here. So I want you to show me, talk about this thing.
So you just kind of use it as like you just improvise when you want to change through blocks of effects. You hit part. So the part is going to be your groups of effects. You use the arrow keys to select them. Hit yes. It's a dry wet thing. So like these are going to give you resample stutters.
Yeah.
This is a like triplet here. This is this will just loop the audio.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. Yeah. Please, like, yeah,
I mean, that's all you do. Like,
That's
it's
so
it's
cool.
so simple as punching effects. Think of like pocket operators or
yeah.
404s.
Right,
You just slam the fader and then you just jump through effects and create new rhythms out of the effects. And when you change to different blocks of effects, it's best to be on the dry side. Otherwise, you may run into just like a weird audio fragment.
Sure.
But, yeah, it would just be like just whatever. Go to another one.
Dude, crazy. So like, so it's already, so to change, you have to hold down this button basically. I'm a super noob with Octatrack, so
Yeah.
so it's like, okay, got
But
it.
like once you're in it, you can start jumping around. Then you go out of it and just find like those
Got it.
and then jump out from dry to wet. Who is this guy? UG Rekshun? You're like the most negative human right now. Relax, dude.
I mean, I can yap all day.
Yeah,
That's what I'm good at. I'm great at yapping.
A $250 chord K oscillator. You can't build your own effects on a K oscillator. I'm just being real, bud. Try messing with jumping from stutters to stretches, like once it's engaged, like
engage it.
yeah. And then jump and then leave it. There you go.
So like. You could even do. Oh, that's crazy, dude.
It gets really good when you're using. You
Yeah.
have a bunch of drums going with it.
Ooh. Ah.
Here, you play this. And I'll
Yeah,
play
yeah,
this.
yeah. Let's try with that. Here we go. Well, you sold me. You sold me, dude. I don't even have an octave track. That's crazy.
I think it's
That's
really works
crazy.
really well with that style of tune for sure.
Wow.
Like the resample time stretch stuff. It's kind of like what you were doing with the boss thing, because it's a very similar sound already. And like I got a lot of the ideas from listening to folks like yourself and just like drum and bass stuff. Like what would be fun to do with live effects is
Yeah.
like I want to rearrange the music. You know what I mean?
It's the hardest part, I think, about performing is how do you breathe life into something that's like even if you're improvising, have a set arrangement, because with a guitar you can be like, oh, I'm doing this inversion, or you can even change the word drumming, like I can take a snare out and just like play it and I can do it so in real time. But with this, you have numbers and you have like a lot of electronics and mathematics going into things being very specifically, this is this pattern. So it's like, how do you manipulate sound and audio to like achieve the same effect as if you were
of being
in a really, really good live performance, like jam session or something.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
It's super tough. I mean, that's like kind
You're
of
very good at it though. I mean, that's like case in point. Like I'm even overwhelmed just looking at this. Like the fact that you can play with this and then other pieces of gear and your sound is very cohesive. And then you're also playing it's like, that's so impressive. Like I don't understand.
There's a lot of pieces of kit out there that can kind of like do similar stuff, like
K oscillator, yeah.
that. Yeah,
$20.
like the chaos,
Yeah,
$250
exactly.
K oscillator can do a similar job. Like the Chaos Replay can do an alright job. Your 404 Mark II can do it.
Yeah.
Your computer can do it. You can do it by hand, like you programmed it into
Yeah.
your music. But I think there's something to be said about designing your own stuff, but then you have to have a mind for designing effects, which is a
Right.
whole nother. It's like there's making music and there's like designing effects, and they're not exactly the same thing all the time. Sometimes it's just like you're playing, like you said, you're playing with time and math and frequency and filters, and it's just it takes you out of the music to design it, but once it's designed, I think it's like it helps me write music to have like cool stuff to jam with at the
Yep.
time.
Trying to inspire yourself as you're working is really huge, I
Yeah.
think, too. Like, because I also run into the fact of I get really bored with my stuff really, really quickly.
Right, so we're listening to a loop of it. Over
Yeah,
and over,
you're listening to a loop, and yeah, I'm curious. Like, someone just asked about like what are the limitations of this with this system? Like, do you run up against that? Like,
Oh yeah, like I'm up against the limitations right now. Like there's not enough tracks on it for me, to be honest, and I think the effects are quite dated. Like the actual effects, like a reverb and delay, they're very dated compared to like what we have in a DT2. The
Sure.
DT2's like
Sure,
reverb is like what do they call it? They have like a name for like super void reverb or
super
something.
void.
It's something like that.
Damn,
and it
dude.
sounds awesome, and it's like
Super
it's
void.
leagues above like the mutable verb, which is still a really good reverb, which got added to like you were like I missed the deluge. Like they added new reverb to the deluge with the community firmware.
I just love pads, dude. I love
did
rainbow
you see
colors
this?
and I love pads.
Check
I
this
just
out
love it
really
so
quick.
much.
I know other people can't see this so much, but you would like this as you're a drummer. But if we go and create a new track and go to kit, drum pads. I'm just no kit in there. But,
Oh right,
or
dude.
maybe there is, but I don't have it. I don't have it.
I mean, well, I remember having it before the OLED screen, and it was just like, I mean, maybe it's the tracker person in me too, but when I see like per step editing, and then I see like a bunch of pads, I
Yeah.
get the evil fingers.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Which makes me
what
think
will I
you'd
do?
really enjoy, because you were
Yeah.
a 404 user for a long time too. But
But only for the effects. Yeah, it was for the looping and for like the DJ effects, basically. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really use it to create music that often. It was more like just live processing. You know?
Okay.
In the same way I probably use the
an Octatrack, yeah. Same way I use the OT. All right. Well, I have a question for you in regards to the DT2, because that's what
Yes.
this is all about.
Whoa, hello.
If you could have, if Electron was listening to you right now, what would you tell them? What would you ask them for?
If Electron was listening right now.
Yeah, about the DT2. What's it missing for you?
Well, the big one, I mean, they said they would implement this later too. It's the global like compressor and mixer stuff, because you have in the mixer page, you can see like I can do all the post mixing here if I really wanted to, but in the DT1 you could enable it to where that just applies to every single pattern you have.
Yeah.
So for me, and in this one it's all different. So a lot of what I do is I have one pattern and that's what I didn't say earlier too, is like I'll go into one pattern and I'll usually just like I'll make like every thing I want in the song in one pattern, and I'll get ideas, and then I start like copying and pasting it over and then changing those patterns as I go. So like, and then I'll delete stuff out of pattern one once I do that. But if my levels aren't set the way I want them to, then after I've pasted 8 tracks of stuff, going back in and like changing the audio back to like, because you can do the copy and paste stuff, but to me that's just very time intensive and I don't want to mess it up. So it's really nice. On the one, I could have all those patterns, but if global's on, no matter what changes I make to a compressor or the mix in pattern 6, it's also going to affect pattern 1, which is usually what I want. More often than not, that's what I want.
Definitely with the
So,
compressor, I could see that being like pretty important.
exactly.
The
yeah.
compressor, yeah. So you are an avid compressor user on your DT2. I know a lot of people use DTs, DT2s. They don't even touch their compressors pretty often, and they'll compress externally or they won't compress
Sure.
at all.
I only use it for having everything sit a little under like kicks usually. So like I won't engage it a lot. It's usually just side chaining my
Are you
my
side
kick
chaining
channel.
to the kick? So the kick is kind of just
Yeah.
slightly emphasized or cutting everything. a
Yeah,
little bit?
that's I don't usually do a lot of intense compression. But sometimes on the compressor page,
Sorry.
it does have the multiplier, which is like the makeup gain essentially. That I use a ton. So like in this pattern so far I don't have it engaged, but like because the makeup gain changes the gain of the whole track, and I use that a lot when I'm preparing for live shows.
So does this too, by the way.
What's that?
The volume knob.
Yeah, in the one you could do it globally that way too. I just got used to doing it on the knob because I like when you do, for some reason I like the decibels even though it
Oh,
doesn't really
yeah.
make a difference at all. But I like seeing the decibel number instead of it's like a stupid little
Instead
thing.
of 0 to 127.
Yeah, I just really like seeing it as like a it's so I'm saying it out loud. I'm like, do I really do that? I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. Yeah, that would be something I would want them to address. I think, honestly, like,
What about chopping?
I probably wouldn't use it. Like, if they did,
Instead of
I mean, I think
what
like,
you do now, you wouldn't want classic chopping. It's very fast, accurate.
I mean, it would be cool. That's one of the limitations that I really like about this. So, because that again also reminds me of
Happy
it
accidents.
reminds me of happy accidents, and it reminds me of trackers a lot. Where it's like, because trackers, like, a big thing is you are taking those chops, but I loved like having to find the zero crossing perfectly, and like I loved having to be like, okay, and then that little thing is this, which is actually closer to what you're talking about with the standard kind of chopping, but. I actually like that it's kind of a little bit prehistoric right now because, I mean, I think a lot of people would love to see slice points. They would love to see,
Zero
the
crossing
grid mode, yeah, zero crossing. Because even that, I do that. Like, I don't trust the zero crossing a lot.
Well, the zero
too.
crossings, like even on the aux track, this is just I don't know if other folks know
Yeah.
this, but the zero crossing only identifies one channel of audio. So the stereo,
So it kind of doesn't matter. Yeah.
you're still gonna get a transient in your right ear if you don't have it on your left.
Yeah. I think it would be cool. I think as like a performance thing, it would be kind of cool to like mess around with slice points. But I do really love having to manually do it here because it makes you really think about what you're doing, and anything that makes me like not lazy is good because I'm very lazy, and I need someone to like donkey kick the sternum. You know what I mean?
or Saint Bernard kick.
St. Bernard, their kicks aren't as powerful as a donkey though.
That's true.
St. Bernard DDT from the top of I don't know, Space Needle. Sure, let's do that. Dog dive.
Dog.
Yeah.
Well, dude, this has been awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah.
We're approaching going on almost 2 hours now,
Wow.
And yeah, long time we've been chatting about this, and that's what
Yapping, actually. Some have said yapping, yeah.
Yapping, and that's what we do here. We yap about gear, and I love yapping about gear with you. You're one of my favorite people to have on here. It's so nice.
Thanks, man.
You have so many tips and ideas for the Digitakt, and so many things I don't even think about, like locking my project, for instance. Like really basic shit that's just like, why didn't I think of that? You shared with me, and now I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna lock my projects, and and there's just
For sure, man. Thank you. Yeah.
great ideas like that. I love that we got to talk about transitions and how your process of going through transitions and how you create your drums and how you don't use time stretch and how that's a part of your workflow. All that stuff is so unique, and it's like a very individualistic to your style of writing and the music that you're making, and it lends to how your sound comes out and why your tracks sound the way they do, which is it's so cool to me that we all have our own workflow. Like you
it's
can learn
awesome.
how to use a machine. Something I really
I've learned
like.
so much from you too, just by the way. Just
Well, thanks.
I have to say, like, yeah, dude, your philosophy of performance is so cool, and yeah, it's really. I mean, it's watching you play was a big reason I got the looper because I was like, I need something to manipulate stuff with.
Yeah, it's
So,
really fun. I
yeah.
love the live effects stuff.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Is always really cool. What I love about like the hardware gear and like what I do on this channel
Mm-hmm.
too, some with videos and production, and is learning and teaching the gear, but not necessarily saying this is how you make music, but this is how you use an electron box, right? It's like I can show you what a parameter lock does,
Yeah.
but you're gonna do what you do with it.
Right.
Drew's gonna do what Drew does with the start and end points of the sample. I don't dictate that. I love that about this stuff. With
it's great.
guitar, like a lot of it is like it's in acoustic instruments like that. There is a method, and you kind of have to stick to it. There's a little bit less experimentation, except for when you get into pedals and stuff. But like, really, you got to put your finger on the string to hit the string. Like, it's got to happen in a certain way for it to be effective and get the sound that you want. These machines, you can get so experimental. It really is like the future music.
Well, the barrier of entry, I think the biggest thing that is awesome that coming from band world is like one of the cool things that drew me in initially is that the barrier to entry is mental. Like, I mean, yeah, it's like I have to have the muscle memory to be like I'm unmuting and stuff, but it's like you don't have to with a guitar. You don't have to get calluses. You don't have to, same with drumming. You don't have to like learn how to like separate all your limbs to like play music. You can just use your pointer fingers if you want to make a song. Like I can do this and like just go da 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 da.
Yeah.
And I can
You can have just
create
one
insane.
of these, and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. And
Make a whole
you
song.
can make like something that's so cool. And I love that for all of us
That's a really good point.
you know, and I think like it's also the, if you learn, kind of back to the point of like the first box you get, the first thing you get will teach you a lot about everything if you stick with it, like because the concepts go to everything. Like because of learning, the model samples and the Digitakt, it was like when I get a deluge, like I already know conceptually, I keep saying conceptually, but I know what I want to do on it already, or I know at least what I want to try to do, and that just comes with the trial and error of being like, you're making stuff, it kind of sucks, but you're really excited, and that excitement propels you into like expanding what you already know. And that's what I love to see too. It's like no matter what gear you have, K oscillator or whatever, it always will transfer.
Right. To the
Like
next
concepts
piece.
will always transfer,
Yeah,
and you don't lose that experience. If I don't play drums for a month, like I have to like take a week, and you can forget certain
Like a
techniques,
little atrophy.
but it's
so
like
to
once
speak.
you learn, that like, filtering this sound, I know if I do this and I import, and you see 16 pads in a sequencer, you're like, I know what 311 715 sounds like. Those are offbeat hi-hats,
Right.
and that there's a lot of things with that kind of workflow, I suppose. But yeah, it is, also you do still have to practice though, and that practice, I think what's cool is that you're practicing you're practicing the mind, man. No, but it is like you're practicing essentially the syntax of like what a machine's language is, and then you're like also practicing using your mind to think of solutions to problems. But that is why I love ringing something out, because it's all problems, and all this music to me is figuring out how to fix problems.
That's interesting.
Seriously, it's like I know the energy I want, right? How do I fix when it's not doing that? What do I need to do to fix that? And that, if you approach it that way, then it's like, well, I'm not trying to add stuff on it, but it's like, well, the problem's fixed, and that means it's good. And I feel like that's like a similar thing with like mixing, with any of the disciplines around making electronic music. My mindset is like, well, is there any issues with it? If yes, then what?
Right.
Then how do I address that? Until then, you're like, well, I don't see any issues with it. And then you start to get excited. You're like, oh, it's cool. Now I'm feeling it. Like, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that. Other than that, I think it's so rad to be able to learn and to be able to like, like it's so simple and so complicated. And
Right.
and I love the whole the community here, and just like getting to learn and to share is awesome. So
Yeah,
thanks,
that's
man.
what I love about the gear too, is that there's like a huge community around it, or the community continues to grow, and we're all really excited about making music.
Yeah.
And everybody's got these. I'll talk to somebody who's like, I love the Deluge, and somebody will be like, I love the Tracker, and somebody will be like, I love the Digitakt.
Dude.
What we all have in common is that
Yeah.
we all love to make music.
I've never found. I mean, honestly, like I know there's like issues in every community, but the Seattle hardware scene is just so amazing. I mean, Portland too. Like I think especially coming from band and from tour world, like everything is so cutthroat. It's so ego driven, and it's so like what like I have to achieve, and I have like what's the goal, what's my bottom line, and like it's good to want to be out there, but I've felt so cool to be able to like be a part of the scene here, because I feel like it's that sheer joy of the knowledge of it's like in one breath I can say, well, I don't care about gear, but it's like that's not entirely true, because I love talking about little things. I love seeing like you're like, oh dude, like here's the chord pad, and I'm generally like excited. I'm like, move over, let me see
Right.
that, and I really do love the hardware community for that. And I really feel like every single time you go to a show, you're either seeing someone play good music, which is like all the time, or you're meeting someone else who's like really cool. And as someone who's not super social, it's like it's huge for me having that built-in point of reference, right? Where it's like
Right.
I can be nerdy about the shit. I don't have to like try and be like not myself. And I feel like this community I've been able to be my most like the truest authentic version, and I feel like everyone else I meet is in a similar boat. So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Well, dude, thank you for coming on. You are
man.
such a gem for the community, and
man.
I think a lot of people
gem?
probably learned. Absolutely,
A crystal? Yeah.
You're a DNcrystal. This is DNcrystal. Drew Knight, and amazing, talented musician, and you're going on tour. Is there any do you want to? You're going on tour.
Yeah. I'm like,
Where are you playing next? That'd be cool for people.
well, it's all on the East Coast. I'm doing just a run with one of the bands that I've been a part of for the last, I don't know, 17 years now at this point. Yeah, I'm like playing in the band, and then I'm also opening the shows, doing kind of the atmospheric stuff.
So you're gonna be playing these
So
shows.
I'm gonna finish these songs, and I'm gonna I'm doing like a variety show. I'm like playing guitar. I'm just kind of doing whatever. Yeah,
Powerhouse.
I don't have any I don't really have any social media or any links or anything. I know I saw someone talked about that. I I find it too overwhelming. I don't really like. I love playing live and I love doing what's fun, and posting stuff is not fun for me.
Yeah.
But I really need to, because I would
We
love
wanna
to be
hear
able to
your-
share.
yeah,
Yeah,
we wanna
but
hear your tunes.
But I just it's I'm working on it. I'm working on it. But yeah.
Well, hopefully somebody will end up at your show.
Somebody-
I know a lot of people will, but
Yeah.
hopefully somebody from our stream will. But yeah, thanks for
Thanks, Matt.
thanks for
Appreciate you,
coming
man.
out. I
Yeah.
appreciate all the tips on the lovely Digitakt and Digitakt II. Drew's a powerhouse with that. And if you like these kind of streams and you feel like supporting this channel, you can visit patreon.com/EZBOT, and you can do it there. Otherwise, just leave a nice comment and a like. That'd be great. And we'll do this again, and we'll definitely have Drew on again to do more tips and tricks, some more concepts later on, maybe in a couple months or something. I don't
Absolutely,
know.
man.
We'll
Yeah.
get you back here. But thanks everybody for hanging out, and we'll see you next time. Later.